Every robot story, every tale of space exploration, every warning about genetic engineering gone wrong, they all trace back to one summer night in 1816, when an 18-year-old girl had a nightmare that would change literature forever. Her name was Mary Shelley, and she didn't just write Frankenstein, she invented science fiction itself. But this isn't a story about a book. It's about a woman who transformed personal tragedy into universal truth, who survived losses that would have destroyed most people, who built a writing career when women weren't supposed to have careers at all. This is the story of how one woman's refusal to accept the world as it was helped humanity imagine what it could become. August 30th, 1797, London. Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin is born into intellectual royalty. Her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, had written A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, the founding text of feminism. Her father, William Godwin, was a philosopher whose radical ideas about justice influenced an entire generation. But Mary would never know her mother. 11 days after giving birth, Wollstonecraft died of infections. This loss would haunt Mary her entire life and shape everything she would write about creation, abandonment, and responsibility. Godwin raised Mary like an intellectual equal. Their home became a gathering place for London's most radical thinkers. Samuel Taylor Coleridge recited poetry in their living room. Revolutionary ideas filled the air. Mary grew up in conversations about changing the world. But there was darkness, too. When Mary was 4, her father remarried. The new Mrs. Godwin was quick-tempered and played favorites, clearly preferring her own children. Money was always scarce. The household was always tense. Still, Mary received an education most girls could only dream of. By her teens, she could discuss philosophy and literature with adults who considered her an intellectual peer. She was being prepared for something she just didn't know what yet. 1814. Mary is 16 when Percy by Shelley walks into her life. He's 21, a poet, an aristocrat kicked out of Oxford for writing about atheism, already married, unhappy, and drawn to the radical ideas he found in her father's work. Mary and Percy begin meeting secretly at her mother's grave in St. Pancras churchyard. It sounds like something from a Gothic novel, because it basically was. But this wasn't just teenage rebellion. This was Mary connecting her grief for the mother she never knew with her love for this revolutionary poet. On July 28, 1814, they eloped to France, taking Mary's stepsister Claire with them. No money, no plan. Just belief that love justified breaking every social rule. Everyone was scandalized. Her father stopped speaking to her. Percy's family cut him off. They were penniless and ostracized. The romantic European adventure quickly became a harsh education. France was still devastated from the Napoleonic Wars. Burned houses, destroyed crops, families struggling to survive. Mary wrote in her journal about the distress of people whose houses had been burned, their cattle killed, their wealth destroyed. She was learning that ideas have consequences, that romantic idealism crashes into brutal reality. This lesson would shape everything she would later write about the costs of unchecked ambition.
When they returned to England in September 1814, Mary was pregnant. She gave birth to a premature daughter in February 1815. The baby died 2 weeks later. Mary's grief was overwhelming. She wrote, "My baby is dead. I wish to see you. It was perfectly well when I went to bed. I awoke in the night to give it suck. It appeared to be sleeping so quietly that I would not awake it. It was dead then, but we did not find that out till morning." Think about that for a moment. She woke up to feed her child and found death instead. This experience of creating life and losing it would become the foundation of Frankenstein. The themes of creation, abandonment, and parental responsibility emerged directly from her own shattered heart. By summer, she was pregnant again. She gave birth to William in January 1816, nicknamed Will Mouse. This son brought joy back, but the pattern of pregnancy, birth, and loss would continue to define her 20s. She was 24 years old and had already buried multiple children. May 1816. Mary, Percy, their baby son, and Claire traveled to Switzerland to spend the summer with Lord Byron, already famous as a poet, notorious for scandal. They settle near Lake Geneva, expecting a pleasant summer of writing and philosophical conversation. Instead, they get what Mary later called a wet, ungenial summer. Constant rain, days trapped indoors. To entertain themselves, they read German ghost stories by the fire. Byron proposes a competition. Everyone write a ghost story. Mary struggles. Every morning the others ask if she has a story. Every morning she has nothing. The pressure is immense. She's the youngest, the only woman expected to produce something original. Then, during a conversation about whether dead matter could be reanimated, something clicks. That night, unable to sleep, Mary experiences what she calls a waking dream. She writes, "I saw the pale student of unhallowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out, and then, on the working of some powerful engine, show signs of life and stir with an uneasy, half-vital motion. This vision becomes Frankenstein." What started as a short story expands into a full novel. Mary is 18 when she begins writing it, 20 when it's published anonymously in 1818. But here's what most people miss. Frankenstein isn't really about a monster. It's about a man who creates life and immediately abandons it. About a creature that becomes violent, not because it's evil, but because it's been rejected by its creator and by every human it encounters. Victor Frankenstein tries to create life without women, using science to bypass natural reproduction. His failure suggests that creation without care, nurturing, and responsibility inevitably leads to destruction. Mary was writing from experience. She knew what it meant to create life, to lose it, to feel responsible for something you couldn't protect. She was also writing at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, when new technologies were transforming society in ways no one understood. Her warning about unchecked scientific ambition would prove prophetic. Frankenstein established the template for every story about artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and the unintended consequences of scientific research that would follow. At 18, Mary Shelley invented the future. March 1818. Mary and Percy leave England for Italy, never intending to return. But Italy brings new horrors. Clara, born in 1817, dies of dysentery in Venice. She's barely a year old. 7 months later, 3-year-old William dies of malaria in Rome. Mary writes to a friend, "May you never know what it is to lose 2 only and lovely children in 1 year, to watch their dying moments, and then at last to be left childless and forever miserable." She falls into deep depression, withdraws from everyone. Percy writes worried poems about her emotional distance. The birth of Percy Florence in November 1819 finally lifts her spirits. This son will be her only child to survive to adulthood. She protects him with an intensity born of devastating loss.
Despite the tragedies, Mary keeps writing. She completes Valperga, a historical novel about ambition and power. She begins developing ideas for The Last Man, a post-apocalyptic novel about the end of human civilization. Then, in July 1822, everything changes again. Percy Shelley drowns in a sailing accident during a sudden storm. His body washes ashore 10 days later, so decomposed it can only be identified by the books in his jacket pockets. Mary is 24 years old, a widow, with a small child to support. Percy's father offers an allowance for her son, but only if she gives up custody. She refuses instantly. She will raise Percy Florence herself, no matter the cost. Back in England, Mary faces an impossible challenge. support herself and her son through writing when few women could make a living as authors. She's still socially ostracized, still poor, but she builds a career anyway. She writes novels, short stories, biographical articles, travel books. She edits Percy's poems and writes notes that establish his reputation. She contributes regularly to magazines and gift books. In 1826, she publishes The Last Man, one of the first works of science fiction to imagine complete human extinction. Set in the 21st century, it tells the story of a plague that gradually kills everyone on Earth except one survivor. It's too dark for contemporary readers, but modern audiences recognize it as a remarkably prescient vision of environmental collapse and social breakdown. For much of the 20th century, scholars thought Mary had retreated from radical politics after Percy's death. They were completely wrong. Mary remained committed to revolutionary causes her entire life. She was just more strategic about it. Her biographical articles criticized authoritarian governments and social inequality. Her novels contained sophisticated critiques of privilege and injustice. She also used her limited money to help other women who'd been rejected by society, women abandoned by husbands, women with children outside marriage. She never stopped fighting. She just learned to fight smarter. Mary Shelley died on February 1st, 1851, age 53, probably from a brain tumor. After her death, they found a box containing locks of hair from her dead children, a notebook she'd shared with Percy, and pieces of his ashes and heart. She had carried that grief with her always. For decades, she was remembered only as Percy Shelley's wife and the author of Frankenstein. Her other novels went out of print. Her political writings were forgotten. But in the 1970s, feminist scholars rediscovered her complete body of work. They recognized its sophistication, its political importance, its profound influence. Today, we understand. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley didn't just write the first science fiction novel. She created a new way of thinking about progress and human values. Every discussion of artificial intelligence echoes themes she explored in Frankenstein. Every warning about genetic engineering, every story about technological responsibility. She showed that women could write about science, politics, and philosophy as brilliantly as men, that women's experiences of creation and loss provided unique insights into the human condition. The world Mary imagined, where scientific advancement outpaces moral development, where power concentrates in ambitious hands, where cooperation breaks down under competition, has largely come to pass. But her vision also offered solutions, empathy, cooperation, attention to the vulnerable. She believed that traditionally feminine values of care and nurturing provided essential wisdom for managing technological power. She was 18 when she had that nightmare, a teenager who'd already lost a child, who'd witnessed war's devastation, who understood that creation without responsibility leads to destruction. From her grief and her wisdom, she gave us the tools to understand our own accelerating technological age. Mary Shelley invented the future, and she warned us about it. All we have to do is listen.
If this story made you angry, if it inspired you, if it made you wonder who else has been erased, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now.
Because if we don't tell these stories, who will? And if we don't remember these women, who else gets forgotten tomorrow?
They can steal credit, they can rewrite papers, they can dominate textbooks, but they can't stop us from finding the truth and sharing it.
That's why you need to subscribe to Women Erased. Let's rewrite history together.